Talking Reds, Tuesday's Talking Reds, myself, Gareth Roberts, got James Pearce from The Athletic with me this morning to have a chat about the Reds, and it's just going to be a nice, easy chat here. We're not going to get into some of the mad names flying around out there, but I think we need to talk generally, James, about, the transfer situation. Obviously, people are looking and people are getting angry about the fact that, Man United may well sign Sancho. It looks to be going in that direction, and there looks to be plenty of fairly decently sourced information around it and things like that. So obviously, lots of people then go, "Oh, why aren't Liverpool doing X, Y, or Z?" In general, the stuff that's come out of Liverpool has been that they're taking it easy, they're being quite conservative, they're concerned about money around the coronavirus, what they've lost, all of that revenue that they didn't bring in, all those games behind closed doors, and the fact that we still don't know when football will return to normal. And we saw the situation with Timo Werner. I think last time you were on with me, we talked about that then. It seemed fairly clear Klopp did want him at one stage, and then obviously the club had to back away or decided to back away. Where do you think the situation is now? Because obviously Dejan Lovren's left, and that leaves us a little bit light at centre-half in terms of an experienced centre-half anyway. Obviously we've got a couple of young lads there who could step in. And then there's still the left-back situation as well with I think Larouci's on his way out, isn't he? So, we look short there as well. You'd have to be going maybe to Milner again, who we all know doesn't particularly like playing there. So do you see Liverpool doing something this summer?
Yeah, and undoubtedly I'd be absolutely amazed if there aren't any new faces coming in. I think the messages out of the club have been pretty consistent, both kind of on the record and off the record when you speak to people, that it will be a relatively quiet summer for the reasons you spoke about there, in terms of just how decimated revenues have been as a result of the pandemic. And I know that inevitably leads to talk, what about Chelsea? What about Man United? Well, the reality is that their business is run differently, and those are also two clubs who are playing catch up massively compared to Liverpool. And someone like Sancho, of course, he would, if he goes to United, he improves them. But he gets into Man United starting 11 comfortably. He doesn't get into Liverpool starting 11. And then you're in the realms of, on what planet would Liverpool be spending 100 million plus on a squad player? It's just not realistic, is it? So there's certainly some gaps there that have to be filled. And, we know with how shrewd Klopp and Michael Edwards have been, and Mike Gordon, that, they're not stupid. They will be able to see those gaps like the rest of us. And centre-back has to be a priority because, I know they've got big hopes for Sepp van den Berg and Kajana Hoover, but it's just not realistic. I don't think that you could possibly go into a new Premier League season banking on one of those two to be your fourth choice. And same with Nat Phillips. I like Nat Phillips, but it's a big leap of faith to think that you could throw him into Premier League action. I think especially when you look at Joel Matip's injury record, and of course, Joe Gomez had a brilliant second half of the season, but he had issues himself previously. So that has to be something that needs to be addressed. And as you said as well, the cover for left back, because I think even before the business with Larouci's contract, I think it was pretty clear that Larouci was nowhere near the same level as Nico Williams, who I think, quite rightly is now regarded as Trent's kind of put the perfect deputy for him. And, Larouci's agent has made it clear to Liverpool, as things stand, he's not prepared to sign an extension. He's into the last year. So as a result, Liverpool will be willing to listen to offers for him. And as we've all seen, James Milner does everything you could possibly expect of him when he plays at left back, but I don't think he enjoys playing there, and I don't think many Liverpool fans enjoy watching him playing there, because we just can't be the same force when you are denied that kind of attacking thrust that we're used to seeing from Robertson down there. So yeah, they're two areas that whether they can both be addressed almost with one signing or whether it's two. I still expect those areas to be addressed before the season starts. I think Klopp said himself, didn't he, that he said, we need clarity. He said, and we're likely to have clarity later on in the window. I think traditionally he's done his business quite early at Liverpool, Klopp, but this is a summer unlike any of the other ones, and I think it will mean that things drag on that bit longer, especially when you're waiting to see what offers you get for for those fringe players that you're willing to offload.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, to see where you almost think, you wonder where the market might go. I mean, you mentioned Chelsea and you mentioned Man United as maybe outliers, but equally clubs that are looking to play catch-up and a long way away from Liverpool this season. For Liverpool, then, do you think maybe they just keep the powder dry, see what kind of prices are being paid and things like that? Because, all this talk about the revenue, it does hit every single club. Maybe not Manchester City for all the reasons that we know, but everyone else it will do. Do you think maybe you see a shift in the actual prices that are being paid for players as well, and maybe that's another reason why Liverpool might want to wait a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor. And I think also that there's almost a wait and see in terms of what kind of offers are they going to get for people like Shaqiri and Harry Wilson and Marco Grujic. And I think back to January time when Liverpool rejected a few clubs coming in for Shaqiri, and the word then was that we're not prepared to let him go now because we feel as if we need him for the second half of the season, but we'd be prepared to sell him for 25 million plus in the summer. Now, at the time, I thought that looked a bit optimistic. I think now in this climate, I don't see someone paying 25 million for Shaqiri, and similarly, you're probably looking at similar fees for Wilson and Grujic. So. That there's a lot of big decisions to be made in the coming weeks for Klopp and Edwards, and in terms of those fringe players, because it's that balancing act, isn't it, between what is going to benefit the club more, selling them at what could potentially be a knockdown rate, which Liverpool don't make a habit of doing when you look at how good the business has been in terms of getting fees for players. Or you're better off keeping these around to give you greater depth this season, because next season will be absolutely crazy in terms of how packed the schedule is. It's essentially the same number of games in a month shorter, and Liverpool are a much better place than most going into next season. The fact that I think there is an argument that going out the Champions League when they did is a bit of a blessing in disguise in terms of his the Klopp's been able to give the players a few weeks off, and then he's got a mini pre-season, so that's going to benefit Liverpool. But so it's I think for people like Wilson and Grujic and Shaqiri, I think a lot of it depends on what kind of offers are forthcoming, and Liverpool may well decide that if the price isn't right, then they're better off keeping hold of them.
And there's also a thing as well, isn't there, James? I think that you look at the players we've got and that we're keeping and that aren't going anywhere and that aren't being linked with big clubs around Europe, which has kind of been the way things have gone in the past. So I'm thinking, people are talking about United and Chelsea possibly, contending for the title and things like that. But there seems to be, when you're looking in, quite a bit of work to be done. There's question marks over goalkeepers, there's question marks over centre-halves. And in those two positions in particular, we've got two of the best players in the world in those positions. And, there's a piece by one of your colleagues in the Liverpool pack, if you like, Joycey, the other day, talking about that, saying, where'd you find another Virgil van Dijk right now? And, even if you go through like all the the centre-halves in Europe, a lot of them are getting to the end of the careers, they're into the 29-30 bracket and things like that. And will cost a lot of money as well. So I get the scramble for new faces, but I also think we should be having a little bit of a look round and saying, well, these lads have just won the league and we're keeping them. They're not going anywhere. They're happy. They're together. They're ready to attack the next title. And that's something to be grateful for, isn't it?
Yeah, and I do think that goes under the radar for a lot of people. Just how nice is it as well to have a summer where, there's not even, certainly no rumours that you'd even pay even half attention to about potentially losing someone you would want to keep, because that is testament to what Klopp has done at Liverpool. That I remember in the early days when he came in, speaking to him and about it felt like Liverpool was a stepping stone for elite players, and they'd come to Liverpool and think, I'll do a couple of years here, and then that'll if I do well here, I can go and play for one of the Spanish giants or whatever. And that's one of his biggest achievements, the fact that elite players now look at Liverpool as a final destination. I think sometimes when Van Dijk occasionally gets linked with someone and you inevitably just laugh because you just think, why on earth would anyone make that move? Because elite players. There's obviously two major factors, isn't there? There's you want to be successful, you want to win trophies, and you want to be recompensed suitably for your services. And Liverpool's wage bill is up there with pretty much anyone's in world football, and they've won pretty much everything there is to win in the last 13, 14 months. So I think you're right. There is in some quarters an obsession with something shiny and new. But yeah, we shouldn't overlook exactly what we've got under our noses, because how many top clubs in the Premier League are desperate for a leader at the back, a proper commanding centre half, and you only have to look at the money that City are paying for Nathan Ake. I think Ake's a decent player, but is he gonna be a transformative signing defensively? I think no. He's probably a decent squad option, and when Laporte's not there on the left hand side or whatever. But when you see some of the figures bandied around for someone like Koulibaly, who is he, deep into his late 20s now? It does make you appreciate that. And the same with obviously the big fuss with Chelsea in terms of they got Werner. Are they going to go and get Havertz as well? Well, I'd say one of Chelsea's massive issues is their goalkeeper. They desperately need a new number one, and and there's Liverpool with the best goalkeeper in world football and the best centre half in front of him.
And you mentioned the manager there. There was a documentary last night on Channel 4. Yourself was featured on it at various stages, and I don't think it told us anything new about Jurgen Klopp. It was Jurgen Klopp, Germany's greatest export. You'll be able to get that on catch up if you missed it last night. I enjoyed it just from the perspective of that we're the story. And we, as a Liverpool fan, you can sit back, you can relax, you can watch things like this. And as I say, I didn't particularly learn anything new from watching it, but it was just a nice little reminisce about the time we've had with Jurgen Klopp. And I thought it was quite nice to see sort of, that first press conference again and think about the moment when he came in and what he had to deal with and all that. And I just wanted to get you on it really, James. Obviously, you deal with him a couple of times a week in press conferences and things like that. You've interviewed him quite a few times as well. I mean, what are your sort of general thoughts on his tenure so far? I mean, obviously, it's been the last, as you say, 14 months or so have been absolutely brilliant. But there's so much that he's sort of been the figurehead for and responsible for, and he seems to be absolutely loving it as a Liverpool manager, where maybe in the past we've seen some people, they look a bit burnt out by being a Liverpool manager because it's such a heavy job, really. Yeah.
No, he's just an amazing fella. I think I've heard some people say it's probably right that he's, in some regards you could say he's wasted as a football manager, because he'd be probably an amazing politician when you look at the state of the leaders we've got around the world these days. Because one of the things I love with Klopp is what you see is what you get with him. You meet some people in football who have got one face for the cameras and another face when the cameras are switched off. And from the very early days, it was pretty clear that just wasn't Klopp. He's very natural. He's got an infectious personality that players and staff just absolutely love working for him. He's got this amazing knack of getting the best out of everyone. He's a pretty. I've certainly never met anyone even remotely like him in terms of. He's this real powerful figure within Liverpool. His personality runs right the way through the club. In terms of the way that everything is run, yet he's not dictatorial in any way. In terms of he doesn't feel like he has to have he's so good at surrounding himself with experts. I think that's one of his biggest strengths is he never kind of thinks because I'm the manager I know everything, I know better than you. He actually when you speak to staff members at Melwood, they aren't just encouraged to question him and to argue the case with him. It's demanded of them. It's like, I want you to tell me why I'm wrong, and then we talk it through, and then we make a decision collectively. And I was reading some quotes from Andy Lonergan the other day when he was saying, I get treated the same as Mo Salah, and that says a lot about the culture he's created there. That no one is placed on a pedestal. Everyone is the same. And it's watching that documentary, you just think the progress has just been astonishing, hasn't it? From from when he walked in, when even just the prospect of getting Liverpool back into the Champions League looked a big enough challenge, because we'd fallen so far away. I think we'd only been in the top four probably once or twice in the last probably 5 or 6 years before that. Winning the Premier League then, of course it was it was a target, but it felt so far away. Yet year on year, he's evolved that squad, he's evolved the style. He's surrounded himself with such experts in every single field. And now we're able to bask in the glory of what he's created. And I think you're right. You get probably one of the biggest things last season was certainly him signing that new contract, because the Liverpool job, as you said, can age people pretty dramatically because it is just so all-consuming. But I remember asking him about it actually when I interviewed him for The Athletic back in October, and I said, do you not ever feel just absolutely exhausted? Because I think we had about 45 minutes in his office, and probably every 2 or 3 minutes someone was knocking on the door wanting to see him. And like, how do you, this is your day, like day in, day out. And he said, he said, this job is, he said, it's not energy taking. He said, it's energy giving. He said, I get such a buzz out of what I do. And I think that was the why he decided to sign that contract extension to stay till 2024. So it's been some ride so far, but I think we're very, very fortunate to have him. You wouldn't, like we talked about Alisson and Van Dijk before, you certainly wouldn't swap Klopp for anyone in world football, and it whets your appetite. What other chapters are left to be written for him at Anfield?
Absolutely. And someone who has got more chapters to come at Anfield is Harvey Elliott. You've done a piece with him this week on The Athletic, and very good it is too. Really enjoyed it. A lot of his personality came across in this piece, which was good. It's easily overlooked that he's only a 17-year-old lad. And I think, the flashes we have seen of him on the pitch, there's obviously something there. And, that's why Real Madrid was sniffing around and things like that before Liverpool got in there and got him. So, he is someone to be really excited about. And I thought some of the detail in it was really interesting. Not only that, that I didn't know, for example, that his whole family was up here with him. It makes a lot of sense, of course, for that to be the case, but isn't always the case.
Yeah.
But I love the little snippets you get of his personality. I've sort of sensed this before of various other people, who are working around the club, that he's got something about him, hasn't he? He's not your normal 17-year-old lad. He's really confident. He knows what he's got in his locker, and you kind of think it's not going to faze him if Klopp decided to use him, a bit more next season.
Yeah, and that shone through in the chat with him, really, that I think he's got a really nice balance between, with youngsters, it's always a fine line, isn't it? Between you want them to have self-belief, you want them to back themselves, but you don't want them strutting around like they own the place. And I think you only have to look at, the way in which James Milner's taken him under his wing and given him so much help and advice that, James Milner wouldn't go beyond the call of duty for someone who he thought had got above their station in any way, because Harvey Elliott hasn't. He's from the very first session he had at Melwood last July, I know the senior pros were looking around and thinking, wow, this is some talent we've got on our hands here, a 16-year-old kid. And I think, you become a bit cynical, don't you, in football, in terms of, we're so used to people saying, oh, it's a dream for me to represent this club and for me to be here. But, when you look through Harvey Elliott's old snaps, he's got the proof to back it up. The fact he was sat on the cop with his dad when he was 3 years old for that Champions League qualifier against Maccabi Haifa. that made me feel incredibly old, thinking I was interviewing someone who was 3 years old at that game. And he was in Kiev as a fan. And I love the fact that of course he then turned down the opportunity to meet Sergio Ramos when Real Madrid were trying to sign him a year ago, because he said, you're all right, not after what he did to Mo in Kiev. And it was great to chat to him, because you just sense that just a young kid who's just absolutely living the dream at Liverpool. And what an education he's had, of all the years to join Liverpool, to his first season to be when, he said he's got three winners' medals hung above his bed that he looks at before he goes to sleep every night: the Premier League, the Super Cup, and the Club World Cup. And I think what did he make it? Probably 8 appearances in all competitions across the season. So he probably would have ideally liked to have featured a bit more, but he's one that the staff and Klopp have got absolutely massive hopes for. And I think regardless of what the tribunal decide in terms of a fee that will probably get sorted out in the next few weeks, I think it'll prove to be money very well spent for Liverpool, because when I've watched him play, he just doesn't look like a kid playing a man's game. I think he uses his body so intelligently. He's got great balance, a lovely touch, and you just think the fact that he's every day of the week he's learning from people like Mo Salah and Sadio Mane. You as a young player with massive potential, you couldn't wish to be in a better school than that.
Thought it was interesting as well, James, that the throwing him in at fullback in training as well. Just that's obviously to try and hone his defensive game. But the idea that he's then going up against the likes of Mo Salah, is interesting, isn't it? Because not only is he, you would guess, therefore improving his defensive side of his game, he's also getting to see firsthand the kind of level he needs to meet if he wants to be a regular in this side.
Yeah, 100%. He was saying it tends to be the day before games where they all sit down and watch how the opposition are going to play, and then if the opposition have a habit of playing out from the back, then those like Harvey who aren't in the starting lineup are tasked with playing a similar way, really. But yeah, I think it's about getting the players who are starting, giving them a bit of an idea in terms of preparing for what they're going to face the following day. But yeah, the flip side is definitely that for people like Harvey Elliott, it's brilliant on the defensive side of his game, and also, having that close-up look of what it is that makes Mo Salah such an incredible footballer. So I think you could sense that he's improved massively. I think tactically and technically from working with Pep Linders and Klopp, and I think the other person he was very keen to give some words of credit to was Vitor Matos, who probably he said he feels as if his contribution goes under the radar a little bit, because when we talk about the team behind the team, and of course he came in from FC Porto back in October time, and he's the key link between the academy and Melwood these days. So he's been a real pillar of support for Harvey Elliott since he came to Liverpool. And I think we've seen enough from Harvey Elliott so far that just kind of whets your appetite for what he could go on to achieve in the coming years.
So what else have you got coming up on the Athletic the next couple of weeks?
Well, I've got this is my final week, and then I've got 2.5 weeks off. So just ticking off the days at the moment. But yeah, there's a few pieces coming up. I know Cy Hughes, who I do Liverpool with, of course. I know he's looking at a big piece on Souness at the moment, which I'm looking forward to reading. I've joined up with our data expert to crunch the numbers on the front three, on Salah, Mane and Firmino. Just looking at, interestingly, their goal return has actually kind of, when you look at the numbers, it's actually gone down the last 3 years from 17-18. I think they got 91 between them then, to 18-19 and then 19-20. But some interesting, when you look at the numbers in terms of how the team's style has evolved and changed. And I think also what's changed is how teams set up against Liverpool as well, compared to when you think back to 17-18, with how devastating we were on the counter-attack. So that's a decent piece, hopefully. And then another piece looking at transfers in terms of potential options to replace Day and Lover, and that's back end of the week. And then then the out of office is going on Friday afternoon.
Nice. We'll check those things out at theathletic.co.uk. On the Anfield app, we've got a series of interviews with Premier League winners, as we can now call them. So the latest one is with Alisson. That's out there already. It's a free one, so you can watch that on YouTube, or you can get it on the podcast feed, as with all of our content. We've also done Henderson, we've also done Milner, and we've also done all the usual stuff as well. So check out theanfieldapp.com, download the app, which is free, and you get some free tokens. You can You can get some of the premium content, if you like, for nothing. If you do things that way. And yeah, check out the YouTube channel as well. The Alisson interview is very good. It's only just gone out there, but I watched that one myself last night and really enjoyed it. He spoke very, very well. For a man who not so long ago, I guess, was not planning on doing interviews in English. So yeah, that was fantastic. Well, James, thanks very much for coming on today. Enjoy the break when you get to it. Hope you get some good time to recharge. And as we both said there, loads to look forward to with Liverpool. So we'll all be gearing up towards that. It's not that long to wait until the new season starts because of the situation that we've had. Liverpool are going to be up there. Liverpool are going to be great. Hope that adds.